When I look at our history, I realize that our history is not negotiable. It's not defined by slavery. It is a profound history, and we need to teach it in honesty. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Erudition Network. Welcome to the Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge Session. I am your host, as I am every Thursday, Eddie Phillips, and I am here to share some Black history knowledge with you and for us to delve into some things that maybe we haven't been taught, hasn't been properly shared, or has been obscured in some way. If you are new, if you're new to the program, thank you for joining us. This is an hour-long interactive, and I do mean it is an interactive. I really appreciate you chiming in and letting us know that you're out there, you are watching, and that you are you're actually also participating and asking questions that come up. We're going to give some little bit of time for people to get in. If folks are going to come in, and if you're joining us, please let us know, chime in, let us know that you're out there and you are watching. We tonight are going to start covering a little bit of some things that, you know, ever since the for the lack of a better term, the Montgomery Brawl of a few weeks ago, I have been seeing this reoccurring theme of rebellion and standing up, and the idea that it is something that is new. So tonight, as we start getting more and more people in, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to look at some history, and we're going to delve into what is factual, and what basically is real. I have a big issue with people who put out these warnings, these different images. And please come in. If you're joining us, hey, let us know that you're here. Please, if you are sending messages and I am not seeing them, please join us on the Erudition Network page or the Erudition Network group session. You could chat through either one of those, and I guarantee you I will see your opines and your the things that you're saying in chat. So please join us that way. If you're trying to join us through, say, my personal Facebook page or something like that, you may run into an issue because some reason the streaming for StreamYard is still having issues with that. But we know that we can see your responses through the network page and through the discussion groups page. So please go there and opine in and let us know what you're thinking. I see some of you. Sister Regina, good to see you. Thank you. Good evening to you. Facebook user, they didn't give me your name, but but I guess I'm thinking I know who baby. What's up? How you doing? Thank you. This is I'm just gonna go on. We only have an hour. And if somebody joins us, they'll join. People who join us, they'll join in on the conversation. But I named tonight's discussion. Well, I named it several things, and depending on where you saw it, slave rebellion, slave revolt. But at the heart of it, I wanted to address this these ignorant visuals that we have been seeing for quite some time. And I want to address them because a lot of them, I do believe, are motivated by people who really don't understand our history. And it's one of the reasons why I spend a lot of my time on this program and others trying to teach that. I'm sure some of you have seen some of these things I'm getting ready to show you being shared, right? Being put out here. And I'm going to load this up right now. And the lies of it. All right, there we go. It's allowing me to share now. Okay, so first image I'm going to share with you. And some of this stuff is not new to you guys. Tina, good to see you. Thank you. Love you. Thank you here. It's not new to you. It won't be something that is shocking too much, but it is something that we need to discuss. Give me a moment here. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to open this up real briefly to you all because I told you I would start doing this every show. If you have any questions, any things that you've run into this week in Black history that you have a question about, or you think was pretty silly, or you think was interesting enough to share with the interactive, please feel free to do so now. Drop it in the chat. We'll discuss that. I'll give a couple of moments at the beginning of the program each week to do that because I think that's a great interactive process for us and a great opening for us, right? So any question that you got, shoot it in here right now while I'm loading up this stuff that I'm getting ready to show you. And we will go from there. Any question? Okay, I guess not. All right, well, then I want to share my screen with you guys because I want you to see this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to share is, and I apologize for whatever language is on this shirt, but it just is an identifier, is this picture here. These are collections of shirts and things that you guys probably seen out here, putting out here. And the biggest thing that stands out with these things is I am not my ancestors. It is foolery, and I'm going to get into why it's foolery, but it is foolery. But there's a lot of money made on these shirts, on these collections, on these things that people put out. And they really truly believe that what they're doing is they're saying something that is pretty positive. But the truth of the matter is, it's pretty ignorant. It's pretty ignorant. There are so many of them, as a matter of fact, that I actually saw one I was out at a store, I think it was about almost a year ago, and a person had on this particular shirt, right? I am not, I repeat, I am not my ancestors. And I'll show you the last one here. All right, because I really want to show these before we get into this lesson here. And this one here. Now, no one asked where this particular statement comes from, but we know that we've seen it and we know we heard it. And some of us, unfortunately, we may have actually said it, right? But the truth of the matter is that our ancestors stood up a lot against a lot of assault, murder, rape. They risked everything, so that many of us could be here. And when we say ignorant things like that, that I am not my ancestor, first off, it's a silly thing to say, because by definition of the word ancestor, you are part of them, right? But at the heart of it, we forget just how much, right, that they risked and they put out there for us, standing in front of folks who would kill them and had no care upon killing them. Folks who were able to write the law, right, and stand in front of you with weapons when they told you you could not have a weapon. Folks who threatened and murdered, killed, and we ignore the mass graves and the things that are out here in this country to this day that represents how they did fight and how the law and the authority of the land fought against them. There's a shirt, Tina. Again, it's one of the reasons why in our advertisement tonight I use the fist. It's the idea of the rage, right? Did you see it? I saw a little bit of that. I'm very much aware of Larry Elder, Key, and for years I have I found the man to be exactly who he claims to be, right? He makes money and saying the things that he says, and he gets off on being out here because when he went on the Breakfast Club, I guarantee you there were a lot of conservatives who watched and said, oh, look how Larry Elder is schooling these people. That's what he gets off on. But in a country where we still are faced with so many disparate things, it's very silly for him to go out there. This is the same Larry Elder who said that Trayvon Martin deserved to be shot. The same Larry Elder who made excuses for Tamir Rice. This is the same Larry Elder who, when Botham Jean, and it goes on, all these people were killed. Larry Elder always had something to suggest that this was not racial. This was purely okay, and that it should be investigated, but it shouldn't be looked at as a race crime, when we obviously see that there's not the same treatment done to people, to whites in this country. So yeah, I saw it, but I saw some of it, but I'm not really surprised. Last week I shared with you all, as before we get more into this, I shared with you all, and I wasn't able to bring up no, Tina, these shirts have been out for quite some time. It's not just that. Last week I shared with you all, we talked about Darwinism, and we kind of went really deeply into Darwinism because I wanted you to have an understanding of what has led to all of this. And I wasn't able to bring up a picture. So I'm going to share this picture. I'm going to talk about this very briefly because this was last week's thing. But I was talking to you about how they play the whole evolution thing, right? And you will see that this thing is progressive, right? Monkey, black slave, indigenous, Asian, and that they believe that the final thing is white, right? And at the top of that, whites sit above all of these others, right? And this is taught. This is still taught. And this is the problem we have. Because it's taught and it's accepted in our schools, in our thoughts, they're still in our books. We have to do a better job of teaching the other side of it and showcasing it. You know, I told my son the other day, I think my wife was down there too. I said that they create an argument for us, right? The argument is they're not teaching Black history in school, right? That's the argument. That's what's put out there. It's true. But the history that they have been teaching us for decades now is still, right, troubled. Still troubled. So we argue that we can have that teaching back in the schools while they say we can't. And so if they do acquiesce and say, yeah, okay, well, we'll let you teach this. But then what are you teaching? Right? What are we agreeing to go back to? I really truly believe we have to look at the whole system of teaching as it is. Right? And look at what it is that they're actually teaching us. I'm going to share this last picture because I wanted to share it last week and I wasn't able to put that stuff on, but I'm going to share this last one here. This is another example of how these things, these are from books. These are things that folks have been taught. And we may say, well, Eddie, it's past. They don't teach this like they used to anymore. But they do. They just disguise it by telling you that it's evolution and this is what it is and this is a creature. We got to be smarter about how we look at it and how we break it down. That's just the fact. And I wanted to share that. So, Regina, I see you said something here. Let me get on here. I agree, brother. This is a foolish statement. My answers, because they have not been for them, we would still be slaves. But because they understood that we are a people who are just as human with gifts, talents, intelligence, and the right to be here and enjoy the good things that life has to offer. So they fought for it, and they fought hard for it. And many of them gave their lives. And tonight, we're going to get into that. And we're going to talk about that. Facebook user, good to see you. I don't know who you are because it's just saying Facebook user, but I thank you for being with us tonight. You can drop your name in here. We know who you are for somebody that we know. If not, thank you for joining us. I want to get into this. So we have to understand that at some point, when we say that we are not our ancestors, we are not these people, we need to understand that our ancestors fought. Right? They fought hard. And because of the laws and the things that were being done in this country, it was a hard fight. It was not something that they could easily win. You know, when you look at the earlier laws in the country, at December 1662, I'm not talking about 1700s. I'm talking about 1600s. The Virginia General Assembly decided that any child born to an enslaved woman would be a slave. That was in 1662, right? This is what it was. So that meant that even regardless of what you think, right? She had no control over her life, over her progeny. But yet, we say we're not our ancestors. The legal term for that, and I've said this many times to you all, is partus sequitur ventrum. Partus sequitur ventrum. That is not a Harry Potter phrase. I always tell people that. That is a real thing. What comes from inside, she couldn't even own, whether it was alive or dead. The use of it was at the discretion of her master, of her owner, of the person who enslaved her. But yet we tell ourselves we are not our ancestors. You are not our ancestors. And I need you to go look up that. Partus sequitur ventrum. Commit it to memory. Commit what happened in 1662 to memory. A few years later, in 1667, the Virginia lawmakers declared that baptism, because they had to make you people were religious. Remember, a lot of the founding fathers, a lot of the people who came over here to be able to practice religion after the rebellions and things that had happened in England. The king allowed them to come here in the 1600s. And they said to themselves, baptism did not bring freedom to blacks. In other words, you could be baptized, but that doesn't mean we could baptize you. But we can't use Christianity to free black people. That's no justification that they should be able to be free. This is people thinking about ways to keep slavery going. Before the founding of America, the people who came in 1619, right? They weren't chattel slaves. They were indentured. They were contracted. They could go work and they could be free, and many of them were freed. But a servant for life, those laws of a servant for life passed in the 1600s established us, established the law, controlled the way blacks who could just walk down the road, everybody wasn't free. Not that they didn't want to fight. The law prohibited them. The environment of the time prohibited them. In 1668, they decided to then look at, can slaves be beaten who were running away? Can they be beaten? Can they be killed? Because now we say that you're a slave for life. You can't just be on the road by yourself. You can't just be out by yourself. You don't own your person. So in the 1660s, we established laws. One, we own what comes out of you. The church can't save you. We have the right to corporally beat you or kill you as long as it's done in a corporal punishment manner and your death results from punishment. And by 1669, we have now established what is called the casual killing law. Which means I can kill you as long as I can say you were resisting my authority. The casual killing law was the last way to snuff your ability to rebel. Now, if you run away, I'm disciplining you and I hit you in the back of the head and I crack your skull, or I beat you down to a point where you can't move and you succumb to your wounds. I'm fine. And let me make a clarity here. That doesn't just mean you're a master. That means people who see you, you're a slave. Why are you running away? Let me hit you, beat you, kill you. And yet we run around with these, I'm not my ancestor. You have never had to face the realities of your ancestors. You've never had to face that. The idea that you don't even own anything about you. I was looking at a clip of when they were doing 12 Years a Slave, and they wanted to go back and look at the beatings and the things that were left visually by our ancestors, right? They wanted to show what that looked like. These things, images of that I'm showing right now, are things taken from manuscripts, books, and papers to show, look at the eyes that they put on the blacks. Vicious. But look at what they have in their hands, chains. Look at what the whites have in their hands, swords, axes, clubs. Because the justification was that they're killing a murderous, violent creature. I want you to look at when they did 12 Years a Slave and they wanted to show what a beating, they wanted to be accurate and show what the lacerations would look like in modern time. Not a black and white picture, not something that is, this is what they showed. The slave master would beat you to a point where you could see the bones and the spine and the ligaments of a person. Robert E. Lee is quoted in a famous writing in which he said that they should put salt in the wounds of runaway slaves who had been beaten, so that even though they healed, their pain would be worse. That was in the 1800s. What we're talking about when these laws were initially proposed, right? It's not necessarily, Tina, an issue of copyright. I see what you're saying here. It's not an issue of copyright, right? It's not. These books are out here. Copyrights have a life history. I don't know if people know that. And I'm going to even get into the fact that, like, Getty Images and things like that, they go out and they buy up these images to renew the copyright under them. White companies have done this for decades now. But the actual books that are still out here that you can go pick up, that you can get on Google and go look up if you know what you're looking for, those images are out here. Historians don't do anything but go uncover. What bothers me is half the people that wear those shirts aren't registered and don't vote. And many of them don't care. You know, earlier this week, I sat down and I was talking. Someone had sent me a video. Mike had sent me a video of a man talking about going to Africa through the Grand Canyon. And so in our group, I went on and I posted what is called an anthropod map. An anthropod map does nothing mostly but show where one side by lat long is and what the other side of the earth that it is connected to does. But there are people who are on social media everywhere, people who are actually have put it in their books that these places that were named in the Grand Canyon and stuff like that by white men, racist white men too, somehow showed a secret way to go through the planet to get to Africa. These are the silly things that we're teaching as opposed to actually teaching real history. So it is not surprising when people run out and they attach themselves to silly t-shirts and ignorant statements. It's not surprising. Enslaved people resisted. We know this to be the case because we also know that during those days, people ran away and they escaped. We know this, and I'm going to give you an insight into how historians think. We know this because we go back and we look at the articles, the newspapers, the things of the time that showed us, right, what these people were doing and the laws that they were writing and the fears that they had. Crispus Attucks, who died, right, who died in the Boston Massacre, was shot by the British soldiers. Before he had gotten his freedom, his owner had put in a request to get him back. Now we laud the patriotism and the idea of Crispus Attucks at his death at the hands of those British soldiers, even though from their own testimony in the court case that they said they shot him because they saw a large Negro running toward them with a stick, and they returned his threatening behavior with fire. And it's very much indicative of where we still are right now, what we're still seeing in society right now. Your life has very little value. But they wanted these people back. They would solicit newspapers to where they thought slaves would run to. I even think I have one. An article. And they would put this stuff out. Here's one right here. Williamsburg, April 23rd, 1765. Ran away from the printing office at Saturday night. A servant man named George, by trade a bookbinder, between 25 and 26 years of age, about 5 feet 5 inches high, very thick, flops much, and has a down look. He has a little pock pitted, has a scar on his temples, and is much addicted to liquor. Very talkative when drunk and remarkably stupid. He had on and carried away with him several good white linen shirts, a snuff-colored cloth coat, and a suit of light-colored sagathy, other good wearing apparel, a new half-cut black bob wig, and a set of silver buckles. Whoever apprehends the servant and conveys them to the printing office of Virginia shall have £5 rewarded, and if taken out of colony, £10 beside what the law allows. This is what we follow when we say to you that they would try to find you. You will notice this is before 1776. And they were upset also because I trained him. Now, you're saying he's by trade a bookbinder, but you're also saying he's very stupid. We have to do better about understanding what is really going on and what has really gone on in this country before we start to degrade our ancestors, before we say that they were nothing, they had no place. Let's consider tonight what they had to go through. And then we get into the revolt, the rebellion, the uprisings, as you may have heard. I'm going to talk about the first one, right? And we're going to go through what these things meant, right? The first one I want to talk about is the New York City Rebellion of 1712. Most people will talk to you about the draft riots in the 1800s and how blacks were killed in New York. Most historians will go there and they will talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about the 1712 New York Rebellion, right? And I'm going to share I have a picture as I try to make sure. My wife says she likes to see visuals, and so let's talk about the New York Rebellion. All right. So this occurred in 1712. It occurred on the northern side of New York. And what happened was a large population of blacks in New York who felt that they should be treated fairly and free rebelled. And unlike what happened with plantations in the South, these people were free men. They were supposed to be considered free men. And it's arguable about how many started, but they were being oppressed. They were not being paid. We always tell ourselves that racism is only a Southern thing. I wouldn't say always, but we very, very clearly make a distinction about Southern slavery. Not realizing that even in the early 1700s, 1600s, our people were treated unfairly, even in places where they called themselves to be free thinkers and free. They rebelled, they fought, right? And a fire started, April 6, 1712. And the fire engulfed a lot of the city. The biggest issue was it was used to spark fear. To spark fear. If these free Negroes would do this, what would enslaved do? They claimed that about a dozen colonists were killed, and that who knows how many were injured. They called in soldiers to fight, and they killed 18 black people. Then they claimed that some of the people, more that they killed, that the people committed suicide. They even killed slaves people who were slaves who had nothing to do with the actual rebellion in New York. But what it did do is it created new laws. So when you say you're not your ancestor, consider this. After that incident, blacks could no longer stand and be together and hold a meeting. It couldn't be more than 3 black people together at any time. Does this sound very similar to what we see when the police pull up now and they see black men on a porch? They assumed that if they saw more than 2 black people together, that it's a conspiracy and that they're looking to do some crime or harm. That's what was believed. And that's what we still see today. These things still follow us. They still follow us in time. But yet, we still tell ourselves our ancestors just sat here and took it. They didn't fight. They didn't fight. What law? Which law are you talking about? I gave a couple. That's why I'm asking. But this is what it is. This is what it is. I think that we really need to understand how these things still affect us. I'm trying to type this in here for you all. I also want to talk about another one that happened. Let's talk about the Stonewall Rebellion, because that's another one that doesn't get enough attention. I don't think that people really pay attention to. Oh, the 1705 law. You'd have to go look at the laws of 1705, the Virginia State Code 1705, and it is an act concerning the servants and slaves. If you go back and you look at that, you will be able to see. But those slave codes and laws, they're multiple. They're part of statutes that still exist on the books in places like New York, certain places in Virginia. And so it's just a matter of going in there and looking at those particular laws. I will see if I can find a specific one in New York, and I will share that link with you. But that's a great question. Thank you. I want to talk about the Stonewall Rebellion too. I don't know if I'm going to touch on some rebellions. I'm not going to. Initially, I was going to try to see if I could get through as many of them as possible tonight. But I think, given the time that we have on this program, I'm just going to hit some, and I will probably put a link. No problem. I will put a link in our group and on our Erudition page that will give you a better idea of what was going on. But again, I want you to look at the imagery that is shared when people talk about these things. In 1739, in September actually of 1739, there was a thing called the Stonewall Rebellion. It has other names, but Stonewall was really because it's named after Stonewall, South Carolina. And it was led by a slave named Jimmy. He was a well-read slave. He was considered to be literate. And this was during the time that there was a very big issue going on with the English and the Spanish. And the Spanish had said that they would give freedom and land, right, to slaves, especially those in Florida. And this promise was, in a way, to give Spain, which is funny because Spain was one of the originators of the Esencia del Negro, who authorized slavery, contracted slavery like McDonald's, right? But what they did is they wanted to destabilize the power of England. So this slave gathered up a whole bunch of slaves. It's arguable, again, history says it was about 100, right? And what they did is they led a march down to St. Augustine, right? Florida. And during the march, white people thinking, wait a minute, these are slaves. They confronted and they fought them. And they tried to stop them from marching, right, to get down from South Carolina down to Florida. And they confronted these slaves, and the slaves, or enslaved, former enslaved people, who were going for their freedom, they had a battle. They had a fight that many of us don't even know about. And many whites and some of the blacks died. It is argued that more blacks died than whites, but I don't know if you can trust that. But what I will tell you is that because of that, more laws came about, especially in places like South Carolina where they were going from. They imposed monetary penalties on the slave masters, and they gave slaves harsher punishment permissions and even more work. And also said they could not be able to read. The Stonewall Rebellion, right, caused such a change because now we have to be aware that there are agitators outside of our country who will inspire these blacks to fight against us. So they created what was called the 1740 Negro Act. The 1740 Negro Act, again, restricted the ability for too many blacks to join together. Right? You all couldn't be together. And it made sure that you weren't educated. It made sure you weren't educated. See, we hear about Nat Turner, we hear about Denmark Vesey, we hear about all of these things, but I'm really trying to get you all to understand tonight as you look at this picture, who looks to be the victim here. This is the picture that's in the Library of Congress that marks the Stonewall Rebellion. It doesn't state that they were marching to be able or leaving to go to freedom that was offered to them by the Spanish. No. What it says is that they were accosted by white men and attacked. And then when they responded, they are the savage. I'm sharing this tonight with you not to get you angry, because I know when we talk about this, for some reason on either side, we get whites who get angry about something that doesn't really have anything to do with them personally, other than learning the history so we can present it from ever happening again. And then we get blacks that say, well, why we got to dwell on all these horrible things that happened to us? So we end up not knowing because of the fear or the hesitation. Well, I don't do that here. And you can feel free, ask questions. This is an interactive. But I wanted to discuss this tonight because after the Montgomery Brawl and this idea that all of a sudden now black people are coming together, black people always, our ancestors always fought. Everybody didn't just lay down. But the law, people, the society, the culture, the conditioning made it a gamut which would probably more than often get you killed. So when you decided to rebel or revolt because you didn't want to deal with it anymore, it almost always meant death. Black women would kill or make sure that their babies weren't born because partus sequitur ventrum, to have your baby snatched out of your hands or killed, was too much to bear. And we had women who fought. We had men who fought. The last thing I want to talk about tonight, I'm going to talk about 17 because we're running out of time, of 1741. right? Because we just went through 1740. So I want to talk tonight about 1741, the Great Negro Plot, as it was called. Another issue of the New York conspiracy, another issue in New York, right? Where I'm focused on New York tonight because and upper parts of the country, because we are always taught about these things that happened in the South, but we very rarely ever go into what was going on in the North. We act as if the North, New York, was always a great place for blacks, and that they were treated fairly, and that it wasn't like that, and these people were. It's a lie. It's a lie. Let's talk about the Great New York conspiracy, the Great Negro Plot. It happened in 1741 after a lot of fires had happened. And people were thinking that there was an arsonist. There was someone out here starting these fires. And as always with societies now, they, other than looking into the rich or the white, they started to suspect that the cities enslaved the freedmen who and the enslaved, that this was a plot. And that the racial working class in New York was doing this. Right? No real reason, just let's blame them. And then, ironically, because you see this thing play out in history too, a young teenage girl, she was an indentured servant, she claimed that she had knowledge of a conspiracy. Now, this young black girl claimed this after whites promised her freedom. And because, remember, this is 1741, the British were in power. And they offered her British pounds and money if she could tell them who was starting the fires. So what they did is, city officials, they went about and they executed about 50 slaves. It's arguable between 30 to 50 slaves were killed. There was never any evidence of a conspiracy. Nothing was ever found. But they killed 50 people based on testimony that they took from this woman, and they burned some of these people at the stake. We are in a place in this country where we still see these things happen. Somebody makes an accusation, and then that justifies whatever illogical, violent, vile thing is done to innocent people. We had a situation here over the last couple of months where we're starting to see young white men go into places over the last year, actually, and shoot and murder black people with the idea that they deserve it because of what they're doing to our country, our society. And then on the reverse end of it, we come up to this idea of black people saying, I am not my ancestor. Not realizing everything that they went through. And I would almost say not even caring. Those shirts and pictures and things like this, they're disgusting. And they have bothered me for years. And I wanted to talk about it tonight because it gets tiresome. Because when you know your history, you start to realize how foolish those statements are. How foolish. You are the hope of the enslaved person. Many of them went to their death. Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner. They went to their death, knowing it would be death, because they wanted to believe that the generations that came after would not suffer the same violence and vileness that they suffered. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much our program tonight. I'm not going to be able to get into everything, but I'm going to open up that floor again to the 9 of you or whoever is here. Again, for any questions that you have before I check out of here tonight. I'm open to anything you want to ask, either about what we just talked about or anything that has come up that you are curious about and would like to discuss. And I'll leave that floor open for you as I go through my steps to close down the program tonight. But I'm open to your questions. We will have another session now next Thursday. I am hoping to continue the Erudition Network Black History sessions as they are. I have some changes coming up in my schedule, but I want to continue to do these every Thursday. We've been able to do that for the better part of 3 years now. We've been able to continually, faithfully bring this program with very limited disruptions to the schedule. So I hope that we are able to do this. I ask that you go and if you have not and you're new, or I want you to share this program as always. Share. But I would also ask that you encourage people you know and friends that you have who you feel that history, that they would benefit from knowing these things that we talk about. I would ask that you share with them and get more people to join us tonight or tonight on these Thursday nights for as long as we can do it. We will find some way to continue to educate in Black history, but I want you to make sure we share as we grow this program. But I guess no one has any questions out of the 9 folks I got on here tonight. No thoughts. But I hope that you at least got something from this program tonight, and you got something that you can take with you. If you need any further clarification on anything, hey, please chat with us, and we definitely will make sure that we respond to you. Tina, okay, what you say here? Oh, Facebook, yeah. Well, I wanted to show some pictures tonight, but you know, it's always easier for me to just kind of go into it. But that's my flow, not everybody else. If some people need the visuals, and I understand. Yes, I do believe some of our young people have lost their way. I do believe that the best way to allow them to get back on foot, though, is to have them to actually. There are so many people out here on social media who want to learn history. We know that from the foolery that we see out here of people just throwing random tidbits of foolishness out here. But when you have a source, a place to go that will actually not only give you the history, but give you the factoids and the places and sources and sites to go to grow your knowledge personally, that's what you should be looking for. And that's what you should be challenging those who give out false history and fallacy. That's why we should be challenging them. So in order to get our young people back on track, that's what we would need to do. Eric, great show. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Awesome information. Thank you. No, thank you for joining us. Again, I'm here every Thursday, God willing, and I hope to continue to be here every Thursday. But again, I appreciate all of you who joined us. Please follow the Erudition Network on YouTube, Facebook, and help us to grow this work. Thank you all. Have a blessed and wonderful rest of your week. And God willing, I hope that we can see you again next week. Tana Show on Monday. The boys will be on Wednesday. And I will be back on next Thursday to cover these issues and these subjects. All right. I'm going to check on out of here. But I'm going to say lastly again, you be blessed. Keep learning. Keep striving. And if you need any other information, please contact us through the Erudition Network Facebook group, through chat on YouTube. There are multiple ways for you to reach us. If you want to help grow this network financially, you see down at the bottom is our ticker that also allows us to grow mics, cameras, lights that we need in order to grow this network's influence and its ability to provide information to you. All right, I'm out of here. All right, everybody have a good one, and please stay blessed. Thank you.